Welcome to the Glazier Nation podcast, where we uncover the best stories and the best practices of the glass and glazing industry. Whether you're a seasoned vet or just starting out your journey, this show's a great place for entertainment and a deeper understanding of our industry. I'm your host, John Spellman, and I'm truly honored to take you beyond the glass. This week's guest is my customer, my friend, and a mentor, Frank Dupriel. Frank is the director of Preconstruction for Kenpat, but I think more importantly, and it's off of his LinkedIn, he is a facade enthusiast. Kenpat, and I'm oversimplifying here, does the entire exterior facade. And they do this through prefabricated assemblies. Frank and I talked about the pros and cons of this type of construction. We discussed some new trends and technology in our industry, and Frank shared some tips, tricks, and cheats for Italian cooking at home. Quick reminder, please go to www.glazernationpodcast.com to vote for our March Madness bracket. The champion of the bracket will win the TerraTrack glass cart by our sponsor, OmniCubed. Shout out to OmniCubed for sponsoring the event. You can check them out at www.omnicubed.com. As I always do, I had a blast chatting with Frank, and I hope you enjoy the podcast. The Glazier Nation podcast is sponsored by Glazier Nation. You can check out all their offerings at glazernation.com. If you're interested in sponsoring the podcast or other marketing opportunities, go to glazernation.com/marketing. And if you have questions for me or you know someone that would make a great guest for the show, you can contact us on any of our social medias at Glazier Nation Podcast. It's been a day.
Every day above ground is a good day. The worst day on earth is better than the alternative, you know?
That's right, I suppose.
Yeah.
That's a good way of looking at it. We're going to talk glazing, fenestration, all that stuff, but first I want to hear about your vacation in Tennessee.
My vacation in Tennessee. Wow, that was really great. Eastern Tennessee and the mountains are just beautiful, beautiful part of the country. You know, it's God's country. I like the people there. I love Dollywood. Dollywood's rides are really intense. You know, you would think Dollywood is, maybe a milder, theme park. It's not that way at all. The Dollywood is extreme. The rides are intense. The theming is cool. And you're in, polite country. It's all about God, family, country, right? You know, it seems
what's the city?
Well, it's kind of like a twin cities, right? You have a Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge.
Yeah, Gatlinburg. Okay.
Yeah. Again, I just love that part of the country. And we were just there over the Thanksgiving holiday. Spring break approaches, and I asked my 15-year-old son, last child at home, I said, what would you like to do for spring break? I'll give you a choice. You know, we'll take you on a cruise, or we'll go back to Gatlinburg where we were 4 or 5 months ago. And he wanted to go back to Tennessee. I was surprised, to my dismay, right? It was 2 10-hour days of driving for 3 days in between versus 2 45-minute drives over Cape Canaveral. But that's what he chose, and we honored that. We took him back, you know.
So we have a trip planned for this summer. We actually have I think it's a huge Airbnb because I've got family converging from all over the United States to meet there for a week. My kids do not like aggressive theme park rides. So you're saying I should not go to Dolly World?
Dollywood, the rides are intense. I will say that. That's just my opinion. There are roller coasters that do not go upside down, that are very fast and very long. You can find a few roller coasters that are flat that would be a lot of fun. That's not my boy's speed, and I'm okay with that because I don't like it either. I'll throw up a picture on the video here of we've got this still of me and my son on a roller coaster at Legoland where we both just look like we are having the worst time of our lives. Yeah, so you know what I would do instead that was a lot of fun for us and was a new attraction for us? And it's funny because I've been going back and forth to Gatlinburg now for about 15 years, and they're building constantly. There's a little park there called Anakista. Anakista is an Indian word, and I had forgotten what it means, but it's quite beautiful. On the ground, you get your tickets, and then you're given tickets to a chairlift that takes you to the top of a mountain. If you don't really like heights and going on a chairlift, then you could take the bus up. So you're not obligated to take the chairlift. So you take the bus or the chairlift up. And when you get to the top of the mountain, it's like a little village. They have several places to eat, a sit-down restaurant overlooking the mountains. There are two mountain coasters. I don't know if gravity really is king there, right? So it's not intense, nothing upside down, no big wild turns, not high speed. You get on a little aluminum rail coaster, and gravity takes you down the mountain, and then they cable you up on the rails in your car. There are two of those, and there are little things to do. I would suggest Anarchista.
Okay.
And there are other things to do.
I've got Anarchista is a Cherokee Indian word meaning place of the balsams.
Yes, so we had to look it up as well, and that is correct.
Or a place of high ground.
That's more befitting, and because it is at the top of the mountain. Yeah.
So that does sound appealing. We've done Tweetsies in North Carolina, which is for lack of a better term, kind of an Appalachia theme park of a railroad, and my kids got along well with that. So they have the same thing. They have the chairlift. They've got kind of longer, more chill rides. So Anarchista.
And another great little city, and I know that you're converging on a different place, but Chattanooga is a great city, a nice family town where they have Ruby Falls, and they have the I think it's called the upslope railroad or something like that. Incline railroad, where they have a railroad car that actually cables you up a mountain at like 60 degrees. And that's really the way that old tourists would take their luggage and their pets and their children and go up to the top of this mountain. So your choice was back in, 50, 70 or more years ago, going around the mountain, horse and carriage, several hour ride, or take this treacherous rail car that's pulled up with cables. It's called the Incline Railroad. Chattanooga's a great town too. Yeah, I've traveled all over Tennessee. Great state. I really enjoy it there.
Yeah, we've got a bunch of families converging, and it's gonna be interesting for us because for a long time when we would get together with family, my kids were the youngest, right? And there's a couple families in my extended family where their children are now, 15, 16, 18. One of them is going to play college soccer, so they're a little older. And maybe they're not that interested in the family vacation anymore, but I've got kind of the next wave behind me and my wife of my extended family that now have, 2 to 5 year olds. So my boys are going to have a ball because they're going to be the big kids, and I think they're going to think that's hysterical. So.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And that's always fun as cousins to be the big cousins, right? To be the leaders of the pack.
Isn't the thing in Pittsburgh called an incline too?
I don't know. I've never been to Pittsburgh.
No? Okay. I'm sure someone's screaming because we have a lot of glass and glazing people in Pittsburgh. So if it's not called the incline, let's see. Pittsburgh. I need like a producer to look this stuff up like Joe Rogan. But here I am looking it up myself. Pittsburgh Incline, Guide to Riding the Inclines, plural, in Pittsburgh. We won't dive into that topic, but for some reason I was reminded of that there. Okay. So you guys just went for 3 days, 10-hour drive each way for 3 days.
We did, yeah. I want to say it was worth it. We had a nice cabin up near Gatlinburg, which is the top of a mountain. And then right in front of our cabin, we had to cross a little bridge to get into our cabin, which had a running stream with, large river rocks. So you constantly heard the water flowing all night. We woke up to, and this is again a week ago, March, we woke up to 29, but by the time we left the house at about 10:30 in the morning, it was already like 44 and got up to the mid 50s during the day. It was just beautiful, I like I said, I really enjoy it there. We found a lot of really cool places to eat.
The cold elsewhere doesn't bother me. The cold here bothers me. We went to North Carolina. We went to North Carolina over Christmas. We were up in the mountains, and it's not 14,000 foot peaks, but we were up like 3,000 feet, and it was cold. It was like teens. But it didn't bother me like it does here when it's 65, man.
It's true. I don't know what it is, but, again, folks will say the humidity, right? But, you would think that when it's cold and dry and, you have, you're rapidly evaporating all the moisture from your skin, you would feel colder, like it feels like temperature. But when it's humid and cold, again, you don't have a lot of evaporation off your skin and so forth. So you should, in theory, feel warmer. And here we are in the more humid climate, and people feel colder in Florida.
We'll come back. We'll come back to temperatures, because we're going to talk about some glass tech, and I think we're going to talk about temperatures there. But was and what will I see when I go to Tennessee as far as the glass industry is concerned? Are we building like crazy in Tennessee?
We are. A lot of tower cranes. Well, I shouldn't say tower cranes where I was, but a lot of construction. Gatlinburg is really starting to build up, and it's a lot of rental cottages and cabins and, themed areas. Like there wasn't I forgot what her name, Madam X's Wax Museum or whatever it was. But they're starting to build those type of tourist traps are starting to be built in Tennessee.
Places are awful, man. Those are awful. Those ruined places.
I've only went to one in Hollywood, California. I went to the Wax Museum there.
So building a lot. I know. I've my wife and I are interested in buying like a Airbnb type rental property at some point. So I follow some stuff on social media, and I always see Tennessee as a place being recommended to buy property.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Gosh, I just can't say enough of great things about the state and so forth. We have a lot of fun every time we go.
You, Frank, and I'll cover this. I do an intro, and I'll cover who you are and what you do. But you're a friend of mine. You're a customer of mine, and you work in. You explain what you do. I know it's fabricated assemblies, but what does that mean to people?
We have prefabricated assemblies where we're bringing most of the labor under roof, and we're combining various scopes and disciplines into a singular product and service, like cold form steel, EIFS, cladding of all types from ACM, plate to stone and terracotta, and glass. And we're combining those synergies on occasion into a singular offering. Certainly those individual business units pursue work singularly because, let's face it, there's more of it in your bread and butter and your day-to-day work for each one of those companies to be had. But they also come together in a new business unit that we've created for that singular offering. So it's pretty exciting and challenging. But I think the customer... Go ahead, please.
Yeah, no, I think you're about to answer it before I even asked, but to help define that for people that are as slow as I am, you're taking multiple parts of the exterior facade, combining them into a prefabricated assembly or panel or wall, and taking that all out to be hung as one?
That's correct. So it's a unitized facade. In addition, industrialized construction or prefabrication could be a load-bearing building. It could be, a utilitarian style building. But I want to say that mostly my focus is facades, only because that segment of prefabrication, there's more of that readily available in my world to go and pursue. So we're looking at facades more often.
What type of building is it? Is it the size? Is it the design? Is it the end function? What drives a stakeholder or building owner to go in this direction?
Oh, a number of things. I would think it would be speed to market, speed to revenue. I think that it certainly lends itself to the retail or even fast food segment, although that's a segment that we're experiencing the least amount of conversion, although we're not really pursuing it, but they're the least prone to get away from their ordinary building model and embrace industrialized construction. They're either all in. We see some retailers that are all into prefab, and that's primarily the only way they deliver their product to market. And others are still the brick and mortar or the stick built type construction. So the benefit to that segment if they would listen and embrace it, I think we could take, and we're seeing in Florida, Zaxby's chicken, for example. They're building these, and Wawa's, they're building these, retail units, whatever their business may be. We could deploy that building very, very quickly, especially when it's prototypical on a repeat basis, and get it up, dried in, and available for their consumers much quicker and with much more with better accuracy and quality. So I think there's a lot of benefits to the end user. It's not necessarily less expensive when you compare all those individualized scopes to the prefabricated material. Oftentimes when you do that dollar for dollar, prefabrication loses. However, when you look at the speed revenue or the quality, when you look at some of the other things that you have to do for site prep or foundations or footers or footings, when you look at the whole model, you'll actually find that prefabrication is less expensive than building, traditionally.
When you're taking that extra revenue time, right? That's the part of the equation that makes it a financial win.
Correct. With like a multifamily, hospitality, right? Heads in beds. We hear that phrase, quite often. So if you could open 6 months sooner, that revenue makes a very big difference in your construction costs.
Yeah. Quick shout out to Shannon in Palm Coast, Zaxby's, for sponsoring our Little League for 2 years in a row. So we like Zaxby's, although my kids always eat at Chick-fil-A. So it's kind of contradictory. What
they like what they like.
I say every child age 5 to 15, probably even 5 to 20, they know their Chick-fil-A order. Like that's it. You know your Chick-fil-A order. Chick-fil-A is not Chick-fil-A is not a sponsor of this podcast, but Zaxby's is a sponsor of our Little League. So when we're talking with stakeholders or owners, how do we get them? So the con of not doing it is potentially cost. What's another drawback of the pre-assembled fabrication?
So what is a prefabrication negative, I think, or what could be perceived as a negative? Some of the pushback?
Yeah, I probably butchered how I asked that question, but yeah, what's another?
No, that's okay.
So number one reason, let's say an owner or a stakeholder, they're looking at a bid that's stick built and it's cheaper, right? What's another reason, even if it's perceived, what's another reason why an owner or stakeholder would go away from that? Okay,
so how can they say no? Another one would be that we might hear is, well, I don't want to put the success of my project all in one basket and all in the hands of one contractor, where that could be a prefabrication positive, where you have a single source, one call to make. They could say, well, if you fail, my whole building fails, rather than just one singular component. Certainly we have the bonding capacity, we have the experience, the capabilities, the team, and the portfolio and so forth to really relieve the concerns of the customer. That might be something that we hear from time to time. Well, I don't want to rely on just one trade for the complete success of this project. I'd rather spread the liability around. So that might be one way.
You kind of surprised me a little with like the retail or the fast food. I definitely thought your answer was going to be something about, larger, kind of like how you would answer like a unitized curtain wall, like a lot of the same, right? But I see it, how easy that would be, especially with kind of like how they've downsized the footprint of a lot of those stores, a Taco Bell or a Starbucks. Sometimes I don't even know if you can go inside some of the newer ones. So it's almost like you're almost sending a shed out to the job site, right? Just to kind of.
Right. So you were thinking of it like we do in the glass business, is like one long contiguous curtain wall with several units all in the center with your variables at the periphery and so forth that are, cut to fit or whatever. And that might be true, but that's still a one-off. When you think about Zaxby's, where they're building 1,600 over the next 24 months, well, now it's typical, right? There may be 3 models, and then you get a left and a right hand, and now you have 6 models, and they're really prototypical. So that's engineering that you could amortize and design over 3 buildings. And then all of a sudden your costs come way down because it's not a one-off. Schools are doing that with, prototypical high schools and middle schools and elementaries. We're seeing it here in rapidly growing, communities. Healthcare is doing that with their FSEDs, right? You see that in our business, freestanding emergency departments, or what is it, OS? Anyway, projects like that where they're prototypical and they're repeating them over and over again. They have lower design and engineering and fabrication costs. The segment that we find ourselves most successful in are really higher ed and healthcare. These are segments that have bigger budgets to spend, and they have more refined surfacing and materials. They're the ones using terracotta and Casentino stone. They're building richer buildings or more richer textures and so forth than stucco and eaves like hospitality, or hardy board siding like a Zaxby's or retail. So we're experiencing a much greater success converting healthcare and higher ed than probably any other segment. Multifamily is next. We're doing some load-bearing multifamily. And just getting back to the retail segment, there's a new to me, there's a new industry or new segment that's out there where structural engineers or specialty engineers are designing, let's say, a pharmacy for a particular owner. And they're going to that owner and saying, I will design all your prototypical buildings in cold form steel with an EIFS, a shop applied finish. I'll be able to rapidly deploy this building, and I will design 1 to 6 models, and we could repeat that over several hundred, amortize all this engineering, and you'll just have to pay me for my IP for each one of them, not the entire design or engineering fee. And then what they do is they find regional fabricators like ourselves that they link up with, that they have trust and confidence in. We actually quote our installation and kit to the engineer, and now he goes back and he packages the whole thing back to this retail pharmacy, and he says, okay, your buildings are $70, $110, whatever it is, a square foot, prefabricated walls, bar joists, and single-ply roofing or whatever, or membrane roof, and here we go, and here's your product. And so we have been fortunate enough to hook up with these type of specialty engineers that build kits, pre-engineered kits for retailers. And whenever they have a new building, whether it be a lending institution or retail pharmacy in the Southeast, they call us, we give them a quote, they package it up with their engineering, and they tell the owner, here you are, here's the cost for your building. So now we're doing repetitive work, both facades and load bearing, for retailers who've embraced this new, again, new to me, this new industrialized construction.
Yeah, that's kind of a new way to market, right?
And here's why it's important. This is why it's important, John. We all know that there's a shrinking labor market out there. Last year we had, a 13% decline in skilled labor in Orlando, but we had, a 30% uptick in a project inquiry index, in the Southeast, just due to our incredible growth. So we have this big labor vacuum. It's much easier to attract and retain employees in a factory environment than it is for field work. And we all know the reasons, right? If we ever worked in the field, in the factory, you're in the dry, you're under big ass fans, literally. You're in the
brand name.
You have your gang box right beside you, not in the back 40. Your tools are right there in the cart. You have a break room. You have wonderful benefits. You report to the same factory every day. You have enough tasks that are just varied enough, but with some to keep it interesting, but enough repetition where you know your job and you become darn good at it. And you're not traveling every 4 months to a new site, between 10 and 100 miles from home. So again, easier to attract workers, easier to retain them. And it really speaks to the labor shortages that we're having, out in the field. So that's just another reason why industrialized construction, I think, is the NBT, the next big thing, right?
Yeah. So, all right, there's a lot to unpack there. The first thing, and it's been a while since I've gone on an AI rant, but your engineer who's creating that prototype and packaging it, that seems something that's going to be replaced by AI to me. And I've seen some of the tools that architects use in design where they're typing in the parameters of the building they want, and the program or the software or the chatbot can spit that back to them. Have you seen anything like that?
I have. It's been scary cool, I know that's kind of an oxymoron, but it has been scary cool. I've seen entire facades designed by AI. So picture a flat, a Hampton Inn, and I don't want to pick on any one, hotel product.
No, you can definitely you can pick on whatever hotel you want to on this podcast.
So let's think of a low-rise hospitality type project with eaves on it, where you have some interest with mixed media, whether it be a little brick veneer, a little different color eaves, and some ACM banding. I've seen that same facade into an AI program, and then the AI program spits back out, other renditions and renderings of that, achievable renderings of that facade, and even give you the how-to. So it's really cool. We've been looking at this one particular manufacturer of product in Tennessee. Is it all right if I use brand names and give them shout outs and so forth?
For sure. And if they want to sponsor the podcast in any way, shape, or form, they can do that as well.
I'm going to do so. There is a company in Tennessee that I'm really, really fond of, that does incredible work. And again, we're talking about new trends and new, the next big thing in the industry. And there is a company in Chattanooga area called Branch Technologies. Branch Technologies is a phenomenal company that's really going to take facades to a greater height, I think, where they're digitally printing with a carbon fiber core. They're digitally printing a cellular structure that uses biomimicry, the same way plants build cells. And again, I'm going to use layman terms because I'm not really with exactly in the chemistry or the technicality of their product. And they build with robots. They digitally print a shape out of carbon fiber ink. And then the shape, which is a cellular structure, they fill with an expandable foam, which of course we all know that's expandable foam in a can. It comes through the pores of the cellular structure and it's not quite regular. Then as it goes down the line, another robot comes, which is a milling machine, in layman's terms, and mills the shape back to a volumetric or a polymetric type shape that has texture or braids or curves or a different shape to it. And then finally on top, it's coated with either a brown and a finish coat similar to eaves, cementitious coatings, and other types of coatings to make it durable. So this material is strong because it has that cellular core. It has insulation properties, and then it could also have either digitally printed or embedded embeds or anchoring or fixings inside the unit so that you could hang it on a facade. It could be the facade. It could attach through the back to cold form steel. So now you could have facades that have incredible interest in things that you just couldn't simply do with, human hands and trowels and so on and so forth. So Branch Technologies is a company.
Yeah,
I need to be.
Sounds like a company we want to look up and maybe see if they want to talk on the podcast. Actually, that sounds pretty wild.
One of the things that they've done recently in Huntsville, Alabama, I believe it was, at the NASA Space Museum, but up in Huntsville, what they did was on the eaves, on the face of the building, on the facade, they actually used the topography of the moon, not just some, made up expression of what the moon's surface might look like, but they actually used, topographical maps of the moon that they were able to then repeat onto the facade by using these machines to make a core, mill the foam, put the each brown and finish coats on it, and hang it on the wall. So on the surface of this, Air and Space Museum, and that's probably not the proper name of the facility, they have the actual surface of the moon on the outside of the building. So really incredible stuff that they're doing. So recently on a project, we proposed their materials with fantastic reception from the developer and the architect. And one last comment about that is, if anyone on the podcast or a listener is prone to get a tattoo or get art in their home, like I love art, rather than getting art that is, let's say, a stencil or and I have stenciled art beside me, right? But it's a not original piece on their body or on their car or in their home.
Yeah.
Only to go out to somebody else's home and see the same art, right? Or on their bodies, God forbid, and they got a stencil rather than something custom. What Branch is doing is they're doing that. They're creating that custom appearance on a building. Why make a statement and use some sort of a shelf foam molding, and not make the building yours and make the design yours? And that's what Branch is doing.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so couple things in there. First, thank you for using layman terms. We approve that here at the Glazier Nation podcast. It's actually quite encouraged. And side note on tattoos, and the glazing community will probably hate me for this one, but do not get tattoos. Don't get tattoos. I have tattoos. Just don't get tattoos. Maybe there's an age.
I agree with
Maybe there's an age that you get it and it doesn't really matter, but what you get when you're 18 or 19 or 20 years old is not necessarily going to be what you think is cool when you're 40, 45, 50 years old. And I'm a living example of that. The benefit of my tattoos, I hope, is that my kids will not think they're cool because dad has them.
Yep. I agree 100%, Johnny. If there was, I don't want to say, regret, but if there was anything that I could do or tell my 19-year-old self, sitting at the tattoo parlor was, come on, man, you really don't need to do that,
Yeah.
When you're not, a lot of kids start smoking or put color in their hair, or they get a nose piercing and whatnot.
Right.
It's because they have to have an edge. Nobody wants to be a geek. Everyone wants to be cool. They have to find their edge. And if they're a pretty straight young person who's not a drinker or a smoker or doesn't do drugs, they have to be edgy in a way and cool. So what do? They dye their hair an unnatural color, or they get a nose ring or a tattoo, and just be a little edgy and cool. Well, it's the wrong thing to do. And I should have never done it, but it is.
I feel like not having tattoos is going to be kind of edgy, just like how, maybe having more conservative views has become edgy, right? It's kind of like whatever is reverse of the norm. Hey, I got a question for you on prefabricated or fabricated assemblies. Do you know what a barn dominium is?
A barn dominium? No, I do not.
No, you've never seen these? So it's essentially building a metal building, but to live in, right? And it's just this concept of huge open space. Just something that I've gotten that's sucked me in on social media is looking at these barn dominiums where they've got this massive garage and this massive living room and all this kind of space. I didn't know if that's something you'd ever seen in that space. Another comment I wanted to bring up on something you said was the shrinking labor market and working in factories. Does your company, or do you know of companies like yours that have started to get into robotics to automate some of that stuff as well?
Well, I wouldn't say robotics, but certainly CNC, right? We're no longer cutting with scroll saws and chop saws. We don't have a drill press or a band saw. When I started in this industry in 1989, I started in the shop, right? And then I worked out in the field as an ironworker apprentice. I worked with my tools right after I got out of the military, and I used a 15-inch chop saw, a scroll saw, a bandsaw, all those things I mentioned. They don't exist in the shop anymore. Everything is CNC. So all of our young people, instead of using their tools, hopefully they're using their mind, and they're using, Rhino, and they're using, Revit, and, things of that nature, Inventor. So CNC is the first step, and then robotics, fully robotic. Robotics is great, but, I was about to say they're better when you have a lot of repeatability and you're building like a commodity product over and over again. But here's Branch, using robotics on one-offs. So that's not really true, So, but no, in my industry, in prefabrication, it's mostly CNC, and machines to roll cold form steel, or steel coils into a stud, but not robotics, not quite yet, John.
I did a podcast. It's probably 10 episodes or so ago with Conley Oster, who is Ray's Robotics. I don't know if you listen to the podcast at all, but he has a robot that puts in embeds. So it goes around the floor slab and it comes out an embed, goes down, 20 inches, 30 inches, whatever it is, another embed. It's pretty wild to see that type of technology being used actually on site, let alone just, off in a factory.
So, what I've seen in that regard was a machine that put the curtain wall edge of slab anchors into the embed. I've seen that on one of the Glass magazine channels and so forth, or YouTube video.
Yeah, I might have actually got that wrong. His machine might not. I think you're talking about his machine. I think I had it wrong with the embeds. You're right, the curtain wall anchors.
Yeah, so the embeds are already cast in, and they're going off the edge of the slab. They're putting in the T bolts, and they're putting on the J hook. And I've seen that. You know what else is really cool? So speaking about robotics, I think we're already scanning buildings. We've been scanning buildings for years in our industry, in the cladding division and the prefabrication division. So we go out, we do a full building scan. That used to be a service that was infrequent, that most companies would contract out to manage the ebbs and flows, and companies would then be created and exist for that sole purpose. Now we're doing it in-house. So that's another evolution, another step. The next step that I can see is layout. I've seen advertisements through our industry and Glass magazine and so forth of these small robots that are printers, and they're also controlled by GPS and lasers, and you actually set it on, a 0-0 coordinate somewhere in the building on the floor, and it'll go through and it'll actually print on the floor control lines and layout lines and so forth. Like right now, we're paying civil engineers and EITs to go out and lay out buildings by taking a general contractor's control line down a corridor and then moving it closer to the edge of slab to measure, the in and out control lines for a unitized curtain wall. Benchmarks are being transferred up floor to floor and up to the roof. Now there are machines that are doing that, so we could actually go out with a machine that's, hooked into Revit. It operates off the cloud, and off it goes when it's set up on a certain coordinate. Now the GC, all they have to do is lay out one coordinate on that floor, and then you put your machine over that coordinate, and off it goes, and it prints control lines right on the slab. So I think that type of technology for our industry, that's maybe where we're headed.
Will
AI.
Will there be a golden era of humans working in harmony with robots before the dark age comes, where the robots rule us, or will it go straight to the dark age?
Yeah, I don't know. That the whole AI thing really scares me, John. Not just in politics and armies and the whole Terminator thing, but besides all that, it really stifles creativity, right? Back in when I was younger, we were afraid of being Milli Vanilli'd.
Yeah.
In my generation, I'll say it again cleanly so you could edit it maybe in the future and I won't stutter on that. So in my generation, we were afraid of being Milli Vanilli'd, right? Did our favorite singer really sing in the studio? Now, did our favorite artist really write those lyrics? Did our favorite artist really write that jam, that harmony, that melody, that beat? Did they really record that? Now they're playing drums with drum machines rather than just, analog, animal skin drums, so there's a lot of things. How about books or books being written? How about this? Well, I could write a script in Chat GPT. I could write, a really long, detailed, well, not that I would write it. I would, put a topic out there and AI would generate a script. I could go to, all different types of AI generating illustrations and create the movie poster, which I've already done. So I've created a script, a movie poster, and then, you could actually animate it, right? So it's really scary where AI is going. And maybe that'll create a new industry where there'll be a third-party validator to say that, here's the validation that this was actually created by humans who got together in a room and wrote this song or wrote this script. How about this? The next time a politician or a talking head is standing behind a podium speaking, you won't even know if he's actually said those words. It used to be, well, you're quoting this politician. I need to see the video. That all can be fake now. So now I could see us having at the bottom of our screen a little validation stamp by some third-party accreditation agency that's going to say that this person actually said those words on this date.
Yeah, but who's validating the validator?
Scary, huh?
Yeah,
the person with the fat wallet. Unfortunately,
that's I do not think you're wrong. Hey, I'll let you go. I super appreciate you coming on short notice, but you did promise you were going to provide some tips, tricks, and cheats for Italian cooking at home.
Oh gosh. Well, first of all, make your Italian food at home. Just say no to oregano. That's a phrase that I love to use. Back off the oregano, please. Learn to say mozzarella. It's not mozzarella. I know you say, Johnny. It's not ricotta. It's ricotta. No, pronunciation isn't important. But yeah, I do cringe when I hear mozzarella. Sorry. But yeah, gosh, tips and tricks. Olive oil. Use extra virgin olive oil. It's healthy. It's good for you. Use it. Use it liberally.
Do you break the pasta? Do you break the spaghetti?
I do. And my grandmother, born in this country, my great grandparents were Sicilian immigrants, and they lived in the house. We had a 4-generational household. My grandmother, born and raised through the Depression, used to crack her spaghetti in half. Other Italians who are around me cringe when they see me do that. My wife.
I thought that was like a cardinal sin. Don't do that. I thought that was bad.
Well, I break my spaghetti linguine in half because it is very hard to twirl. Twirling spoons are for amateurs. My grandfather, first generation born Italian in this country in Brooklyn, used a spoon. He used to ask me to use a spoon. I used to say, spoons are for amateurs, and that's correct. Just take your fork and just poke through the first few little layers and put it back down on your plate and twirl and push the spoon aside. Grating cheese. Never buy grating cheese that's on the shelf, that's at room temperature. Buy the refrigerated stuff. It has to say Locatelli, and it has to say Pecorino Romano. Locatelli Pecorino Romano. That is grating cheese made from sheep's milk. Sauce, don't buy it in a jar. Sauce is very easy to make, Just say no to oregano. What other tips and tricks can I give you, John? Gosh, not all Italian food is red. It doesn't have to have. I had Italian food last night. You know what I made? A giant frittata. Let me tell you about my frittata last night, John, because I had it for lunch again today. My frittata was 3 pounds of organic potatoes, 1 onion, a handful of very small peppers that were diced. So again, 3 pounds of potatoes, 1 large onion, handful of peppers, handful of sun-dried tomatoes, soaking in olive oil, squeezed out the oil, and I used those. 1 pound of ground hot Italian sausage. Brown the sausage, put it aside, cooked my potatoes mostly first, then added the onions and peppers, put the ground sausage back in, a dozen eggs in a blender, low blending speed, with 3 tablespoons of pecorino romano. You could use that in place of salt in everything you do. Put the egg in the pan, cooked it about 20 minutes, very low heat, made a giant frittata on nice crispy Italian bread right out of the oven. That's Italian food. What nothing to do with sauce or pasta.
What is the difference? What is the difference between that and an omelet? Is it the potatoes?
It is. So it's not. Yeah, an omelet really is thin and folded, right? This is a frittata. So I made mine. It was very large, a dozen eggs and 3 pounds of potatoes, a pound of sausage. It was big, and of course you could take the meat out. Enjoy your fruits and vegetables. Very important. I do. You could substitute this pecorino romano, this locatelli pecorino romano, for salt in every dish. You could put it on chicken soup. I put it in my scrambled eggs. Anywhere you would use salt, use a little bit of this grating cheese. Wonderful. Don't put grating cheese on your seafood when you're having linguine and clams, limoncello seafood pasta. Don't put grating cheese on seafood dishes. It ruins the delicate taste of your seafood. Cheese off the table when you're having seafood.
Well, anyone that tuned into the Glazier Nation for Italian tricks, tips, and cheats, you got what you came for.
I'd love to do a YouTube cooking channel, with my son.
Do it.
We cook, John, 5 nights a week. We cook Sunday to Thursday, Friday's pizza night. Saturday, we typically do chores with the kids, and as a reward, we take them out for dinner. Sunday, we have a big meal.
If you record it, I'll edit it.
Wow, really? You would?
Well, yeah. I mean, we'll have to work something out. Once you start getting income, from YouTube, I'll need a piece. But otherwise, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, John.
Frank, appreciate you, man. Thanks so much.
All right, bud. Take care.